Hello, and welcome to the new episode of Pharmacy Frontiers podcast. My name's Tim Mitchell. I'm going to be your host today. Daniel, he wasn't able to make it, and I get to interview like the new president of Missouri Pharmacy, or the incoming president. You're not yet, right?
Not quite.
Dr. Kendall Guthrie with UMKC School of Pharmacy. She's the director of co-curriculum at UMKC School of Pharmacy. Been a friend of mine for a long time. I respect her tremendously. And she's ready to go. Are you excited? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I'm so excited. So excited. Thank you all for having me on here. This is first of all, it's my first podcast, which is crazy because I teach college students. You would think I would do this before, but this is my first podcast. So I'm excited to be on here and agree. I just have looked up to you and looked up to Daniel for forever. So it's such an honor to be asked.
That's great. Well, thank you. I can tell you, you had an impact on Tanner, my son, when he was in pharmacy school, and I have students now that are coming, that have you or know of you, and are very impressed with all the things that you're doing. So we appreciate that. So anyhow, let's get into you and talk a little bit about you. The purpose of this podcast is to get to know the incoming MPA president, Missouri Pharmacy Association president, Kendall Guthrie. And I want you to kind of just tell us a little bit about you. I think maybe we should, if you're okay with it, let's just start about your personal stuff. And then we'll kind of go into it a little more deep, and, we'll just see where it takes us. So Tell us a little bit about you, whatever family stuff you've got going on, and kind of where your career's taken over time. Just kind of roll and see how it goes. And if I have a question, I'll throw it at you.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll start with the personal stuff, and then we can talk about career journey too, if we want to, go into that. But I live in Kansas City area, so I teach here at UMKC.
Go Chiefs. Go Chiefs.
Yes, go Chiefs, go Royals. Yes, I still cheer for the Royals. So I teach on our Kansas City campus. So we have 3 campuses here at UMKC School of Pharmacy. We have our Springfield and Columbia students as well. So yes, got to know your son, even though he was on the Springfield campus. So my family lives in the area. My husband, this year's 10 years for us. So December will be 10 years that we've been married. He's a dentist, also graduated from UMKC. And him and I own a dental office. So not a pharmacy owner, but a lot of the business, mindset and things that affect pharmacy, I kind of get to see play out on the dental side. We have 2 little girls who are just the lights of my life. So Grayson is 7 and just started 2nd grade. And then Hensley is my 3-year-old. And I will tell you, I am shocked every day at how they can be raised in the same household with the same parents and be polar opposite. So
we're right there. Yeah.
She keeps us on our toes. So
God produces all kinds of interesting personalities that keep us on our toes, right?
Yes, I think he thought I was getting too comfortable with the first, and so he gave me the second. But man, I tell you, she has some leadership potential. That one, she's taught me some leadership skills for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And, I told you I was going to read your bio, and I didn't even do that from the very beginning because I just got to talking. But let me just read a little bit about this. You began your career with the PGY1 community practice residency at Red Cross Pharmacy, later joined UMKC as a faculty member in 2015. And Dr. Guthrie has extensive experience in community pharmacy, serving on the MPA board of directors since 2018 and mentoring PGY1 students on innovative projects. At UMKC, she coordinates and teaches various pharmacy courses and serves as the ACT Pharmacy Collaborative champion. Some people may not know what the ACT Pharmacy Collaborative is. I think that's an excellent segue into and hopefully there wasn't anything else you want to say about your personal life, but we'll go back to that in a second, into kind of some of the things that you do. Tell us about what you do at UMKC and at maybe even in MPA and the ACT Pharmacy Collaborative.
Yeah. So when I started at UMKC, I was one of our practice faculty. So I was here at the school teaching and involved with the things going on at the school, but I also had a practice site, which was a community pharmacy where I took students to. So was there for several years. At one point, moved into a hospital outpatient pharmacy. So still community, but in that health system outpatient setting. And so took students on rotation there as well. And so I've just kept my door, or my foot in the door, not my door in the foot, my foot in the door with community practice in some way or another. And then in 2022, I had the opportunity to move to the school full time as the director of co-curriculum, which is really cool because I get to work with students on, I don't like the word soft skills. I like the word human skills, the term
There
human
you go.
skills. So more of those kind of human skills. So leadership and innovation and entrepreneurship, and really working with them to find opportunities outside of the didactic coursework that help them, practice and build those skills. And so I've actually through that gotten to work with a lot of community pharmacies that are hosting students for health fairs. And so it's just funny how it kind of has come full circle, and I'm still keeping my foot in the door with community pharmacy. But yeah, I've served on the board of directors for MPA since 2018. So I started prior to that on committees. So I've been on the continuing education committee for quite a while now. I chaired that committee for several years, and just through that networking, through those connections, I was asked if, I was interested in being on the board of directors. So applied, submitted my name, and, have been now on the board since 2018. So kind of, worked my way through several different positions. And yeah, now this year, going to be incoming president, which is really exciting.
Well, I hope your family is all planning to attend, and
Oh,
and we're going to be giving these shirts away, or maybe a version of these shirts. They're I have to get up here, the new Pharmacy Frontiers
I'm looking
T-shirts,
forward to
and
wearing
you're
it.
getting one. You're getting one because you
Perfect.
are a guest. All of our guests are now going to be getting, and I'll have to go back and make sure we give prior guests T-shirts as well. And then we're also going to be giving these little stickers away.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. And then we'll have some other little fun things as well at our booth. We have a booth at the trade show, just to steal a little of your time here.
Yeah.
And we will probably try to do a couple of episodes at the show in St. Louis. And it's going to be a great venue at Union Station.
We're really excited about it this year.
I've
Yeah.
never been there, so I'm really excited to go check it out. And
I've not been either, but I hear there's a lot of great things for families, kids. So anyone who brings their families or kids with them, lots of things for them to do while, we're in sessions and doing our networking and all of that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great time.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on today, and I know there's a lot of things we can talk about, but being on the MPA board of directors, you probably hear a lot of different stories about community pharmacy, and MPA does so much for community pharmacy. Tell me what kind of things you guys have worked on as a board of directors, and then maybe some things that you feel like are important that we need to maybe look at over the next year while you're president, and then even after that. So.
Yeah, no, and I'll just put the disclaimer out there. My background is community pharmacy, so I tend to talk more towards community pharmacy, but MPA, the Missouri Pharmacy Association, supports all pharmacy. So it's pharmacy practice in general. So I think there's a lot of things that we do that don't just help community pharmacists, such as our practice advancement, legislation that we work towards. We've had a lot of success with vaccinations and expanding pharmacists' role with vaccinations. We have a great staff at MPA, and they've done a phenomenal job of our practice advancement initiative. So hopefully, all the pharmacists listening can really relate to, those enhanced vaccine services that we now can do, and not only can do, but now we get to do it on our own authority as pharmacists. So that, that's always something we're looking at is what do we need to do to make sure that pharmacists in the state of Missouri can take that step forward and provide those services that we know that we can, and make sure that we don't have any of those barriers in the way to do that. So that's kind of one subset of things that we're always looking at. We have a professional affairs committee. So I'll just put a plug in, I guess, for them. We can talk about maybe committees later or call out for committees later, but we do have a professional affairs committee, and they're constantly looking at what's going on in the nation and the state. What are the things that we need to be looking at? What are kind of these expanded things? And then we look at, as a board, what do we need to be looking at to make sure our pharmacists here can do those things? And so lots of people working on that. I think the other thing that we've seen here in recent it's been going on for quite a while, but big focus in recent years, obviously, is just reimbursement for community pharmacies. And, I want to stay real positive.
Yeah.
Like, we have hundreds of community pharmacies, and
it's a whole nother podcast.
Whole nother podcast on that. But for now, we are looking at those things, and so we know the value community pharmacists and community pharmacies play in communities. And
think about the pandemic. If there were no community pharmacies in the state, what would have happened? It would have been a very, very tough situation for a lot of patients. So sorry.
No, you're absolutely I'm glad you did. You're absolutely right. I see that was almost like an unintended pilot project, right? Like it gave us the opportunity to say, no, look what we've been saying, we can do this forever, and we can do this. Let's show you. And so what we've been looking at as a board is we don't want to backtrack. We don't want to go back and say, okay, we were able to do all these things, and now we're going to go back to the way it was before. So how do we just continue that momentum? But to do that, we need these pharmacies to stay open. We need them to be able to keep their doors open. And so obviously looking at reimbursement and legislation regarding that, and just making sure that these pharmacies are being fairly paid. And it's not all about payment, right? I tell students all the time, it's not, as pharmacists, like, we are there for the patient, but to keep your
without payment, we won't be around to take care of the patient.
You have to have the payment side of it. So obviously that's one thing that we've been spending a lot of time on as a board, is making sure that, we're trying to take that on too.
And your board, or our board, I should say, I'm part of MPA as well, but our board is made up of community pharmacists, right? And I mean, pharmacists in general, but I mean, I know you're in a professor, and I think there's a couple other individuals that are as well, but there's community pharmacists. Is there hospital pharmacists on our board? Okay. Yep, so that's the whole deal. And I know when I was there, Daniel was actually a hospital pharmacist, and we had consultant pharmacists. So it's not just community pharmacy. And I want people to understand MPA is for the profession. But certainly my experience as a community pharmacist is I focus on those community pharmacy issues, and I don't mean to take up your whole podcast.
No, and I think you bring up a good point. Actually, it is so valuable having those outside perspectives from people who don't, you get in the grind as a community pharmacist and you're just used to that's your normal. And to have somebody else from the outside come in and question that, or brainstorm and just have unique ideas that maybe we haven't, that's been so valuable to me sitting on the board, to have those other perspectives, and sometimes come up with really creative solutions just because they can approach it, from a totally different angle.
Right. So I serve on some national boards, and when I talk to people from other states and they tell me they have things like test and treat, and some of the, Arkansas, Kansas, and I'm like, gosh, Missouri needs a test and treat. I mean, we're not far from there, but we just, I think that's, some more important things. Again, another podcast. So,
you could talk about each of these things, right? For like an hour or more. We could go on and on. You need to do a series of podcasts.
Yeah. These podcasts actually spun from talking in our continuing education committee about how can we reach people in a quick fashion about some certain things. We thought about trying to do this as continuing education. We still may down the road, but right now we're just looking at getting information out there to people, introductions like what we're doing today, and just trying to make it kind of fun and, and informational for people. So innovative practices for pharmacy down the road. And of course I'm thinking community, but we can look at other parts of practices. What do you see as pharmacy going in, into the next year and into the next 5 years and the next decade? Where do you see pharmacists and pharmacies and where we serve? Because, there's a lot of push toward, mail order and some of these other aspects that may, change. I believe community pharmacy is changing. And if you don't change, you're probably not going to exist much longer. That being said, we still have to fight for what we feel like we need to fight for. But looking at the innovations and understanding, where do you see those things changing in the, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So one point that you just made me think of is I think that we know the value of those local pharmacies, right? And those local relationships with patients. And I think that a lot of this service innovations that I'm seeing are really capitalizing and leveraging those local relationships, close relationships with patients. And so Again, a whole nother podcast, but through the Community Pharmacy Enhanced Services Network, so CPESN. And I think you're a member. I know your pharmacies are members. I think we're seeing a lot of advancements there just because but prior to that, it was we have pharmacy A over here, pharmacy B over here, pharmacy C over here, and we're kind of all doing our own things. And I think what CPSN has allowed us to do is give us kind of this leveraging where this collective group, it gives us more scale, right? So there's more pharmacies kind of doing the same thing. Now we have tons of pharmacies that can show the impact and the outcome of what these pharmacy services are that we've been doing forever, right?
Right.
But we just didn't have this collective group that was showing those outcomes all together, which this has allowed us to do. So just cool things that I think are going on that will continue to expand. I know your pharmacies, Tim, have been super involved in this, but just the expansion of our support services or our support staff. So like our technicians taking on more advanced roles through being community health workers and leveraging those relationships, right? Because those patients come in and they know those people, they see those people all the time, they trust those people. And so what we've seen, one thing through many people probably that are listening know Annie Eisenbeis, but that she's been able to work on is that vaccine gap closure program. And so leveraging those relationships with those pharmacy technicians, those community health workers, and can we use those relationships to help fill some of those gaps? And I think they are showing that we're filling some of those gaps with patients and vaccines. And so I think leveraging our support staff is kind of a big area that, we are shifting towards, and we'll continue to see expansions in that. And then with that, I think the one really cool thing that we've seen community pharmacists being able to do, and again, we've always done this,
Right.
but is focusing on those social determinants of health. And so what are the things that are impacting a patient's ability to actually even access services, right? And realizing that community pharmacy is a great place to not only identify those things, but then utilize our resources and our staff to help address those barriers. And so that's just been some cool things that I feel like I've, been seeing a lot of, and I think we'll continue to see expansions there as well.
I totally agree, and I appreciate all the things that you said. I think CPSN has really got a vision. I'm not saying everything's perfect, but the things that Annie has been able to bring to our state is giving us the opportunity to go ahead and start documenting.
Yep.
Because you're right, we've done this all along. It's like Trip Logan, he talks regularly about, I've had people that were community health workers in my pharmacy since we've had our pharmacy. We just didn't call them community health workers. But when you call them community health workers and they start working on social determinants of health and they start documenting them, guess what? Payers start noticing, because now Medicare is like, hey, we're really interested in learning more about the social determinants of health and find out, what's going on with how come these people aren't getting access to care or whatever.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And
So
one thing with that, I think that's important to just brag a little bit, call out a little bit, is that in Missouri, we have just been ahead of the game on a lot of this, right? Like some of these movers and shakers of people that like Trip and you and that are really just at the forefront of all of this have come from Missouri. And so I think that we've done a really good job. And now it's just making sure that legislatively, we're making sure that we're keeping up with the rapid movement of what we're seeing done.
Absolutely. Well, it's exciting. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, and we appreciate MPA support and all the things that you guys do as a board of directors as well. So, as far as like education, I know, and I don't think it's aired yet, but Daniel had done an interview with some of the deans on the School of Pharmacy in regards to what's going on with students, and this doesn't need to be a big topic, but are our schools of pharmacy filling up? Are we going to have enough workforce down the road? I mean, those are things as a community pharmacy owner I worry a little bit about, because the demand for pharmacists, I think, is still high. And have you guys seen anything on that? And what's UMKC doing to try to bring new students to the school?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I can guarantee you listen to the episode with the deans because they have done a lot of work in this area and have, just a lot of really good insights on that. So I don't want to steal anything from them. But what I can say is, I think you're right. I think it comes down to, and, earlier when I was thinking about challenges and things maybe to bring up during, on this podcast, I think one of them is just we are having a bit of an identity crisis as a profession, right?
Right.
Because we're trying to convince I feel like sometimes it feels like we have to walk in a room and justify why we're there. And right now we're trying to, public image and make sure the public knows what we can do. We're trying to get to students and make sure that students know what a pharmacist can do. And so I do think we're making great strides and great progress in that area and in finding innovative ways. I know here at UMKC, we're getting into high school courses and trying to, reach those students early and show what these pharmacists in these different settings can do and kind of pique their interest and see if maybe that leads to higher enrollments. But, I feel really positive about that. I think we're seeing a lot of really positive changes. I do think it's something that we need to keep on our radar because you're right. I mean, the way that I'm sure the deans talked about this too, but the way that the numbers are looking, there is going to be a shortage and we do need to find ways to get people, in our doors and, to make sure, because these services that we've talked about, we need pharmacists to be able to provide those things. I know here at UMKC, our Office of Student Affairs is doing a wonderful job of recruiting and getting out into trying to find, various places that maybe we haven't gotten to before and get to students. But I think it really is kind of that early intervention. And then from the MPA side, the board has looked a lot at, how do we, change this image so that all the things we know we can do and we've shown that we can do, how do we get that out to the public so that they see that as well? Because
Go ahead.
I was going to say what it comes down to, right, is we need to get to that point where parents and grandparents and school counselors are telling students about pharmacy as a career path in a positive light, right? And so,
Right.
And some of it is what is in the media sometimes is just some of the negative side. And so I don't think that we do a great job of showing that positive side of pharmacy all the time. And so that's what we're focusing on both as a school, I think, and as MPA is just trying to show kind of that positive side of pharmacy.
I totally agree. And, like with the walkouts and things that had happened recently, it does put a black eye on pharmacy and it's kind of a tough thing to overcome because there is some serious issues. That being said, UMKC offering the pharmacy camps and all those things, it's really cool because I have local students that we try to reach out, have them come shadow here through, I can't remember the name of the program now. I'm blanking out. But we have a program where anybody that's interested in healthcare can come and shadow, spend some time with us. It's not necessarily through UMKC, but New Caps is what it's called. Actually, my daughter helps us do that. And we provide them with some resources and learn a little bit about community pharmacy. So,
and I think you bring up a good point with that, Tim, in that, as a school, we're doing as much as we can. As MPA, we're trying to do as much as we can. But some of it also comes down to the individual pharmacists in the communities because out in the communities is where, students and the public are engaging. And so just showing that excitement, talking about what you're doing, making sure sometimes we do things in silence because it's just what we've always done. It's part of what we do, right? We go to work, we do our job, but making sure that all the good things that we're doing are getting out there.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to come back to kind of finish it up here. I want to talk a little bit about Kendall again because we talked about Kendall, we got into pharmacy stuff, then we got in a little bit deeper. Now let's talk about Kendall. So your personal thoughts on different things that are going on, a little bit about your day-to-day life and some of the passions. Then I want you to finish up with one thing that not too many people know about you. I'm sure your husband probably knows most all these things, but when someone meets Kendall, what's the one thing that they probably wouldn't know about you?
I can't wait for this. So I'll back up for just a second.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things. I think MPA has been such a blessing for me. I'm not paid to say that. It really, truly has been such a blessing for me. The networking opportunities, the advocacy, honestly, the personal leadership development, for me, just the growth I've seen in myself, just because I have all these great leaders to look up to. And so I think I'll just put a plug. You didn't ask me to do that, so sorry. I'm going to go ahead, but just put a plug in. Anyone who is on the fence or has maybe been interested, there's so many ways to get involved with MPA that doesn't necessarily mean you have to sit on the board and be the president. We've got committees that you can be on. There's often task forces that come off of those committees. You can come to the annual meeting. You can come to legislative day. Lots of different ways to get involved. But I personally can just attest to how much of a blessing it's been in my personal life, and just how far that networking goes. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I thought I would be getting ready to be the president of MPA, I would have laughed. That is just not something I ever would have thought that would happen for me. And it truly has just been life-changing for my career. So I'll just put a plug in for MPA and put a plug in for anyone who, may be interested. There is a place for you, and we can help you find where that's at. Also, the annual meeting. You've talked a lot about the annual meeting. Another thing.
Get a t-shirt.
Yes, come get a t-shirt. I know it's Labor Day weekend, but it's a beautiful venue and lots to do in the area. And for a lot of people, Monday being Labor Day, maybe you can just make an extended weekend out of it with your family.
So, short vacation.
Yeah. So as far as the fun fact, I'm going to take us back a bit here. This is always when we play like two truths and a lie, this gets somehow incorporated into that game to see if people pick that this is for me. But I am actually a 2-time lip syncing champion. So Odessa, Missouri.
So the conference, we're going to have some sort of thing going on here.
I got to stop telling people these things, because I told Ron about a karaoke song that I thought would be a good karaoke song, and I am convinced that he's going to somehow use that at the conference. So no, I will not be lip syncing at the conference. But yeah, 2-time champion, Odessa, Missouri.
So just to be clear, I just want to make sure, lip syncing is when you're not really singing.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
but you know every word to the song.
Oh yeah,
and so it's not going to be karaoke. It's not going to be karaoke.
Routine. Yeah, my friend and I, when we were younger, did Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better by Ethel Merman, and I can't remember who the male is on that. But anyways, we had a whole choreographed routine, and yeah, we won in our hometown, and then we went to another town, because we're like a traveling act at this point, and then won in another town too. So.
Kind of like Milli Vanilli back in the
90s.
Nobody knew they were lip syncing until they got caught, right?
I'm still a little upset that this didn't turn into, like a career path for me.
Yeah, well, you can have a side gig. You can have a side gig. So, nothing wrong with that. So Kendall, it was nice having you today. I appreciate you being on. You're always such a pleasant person to talk to. Looking forward to having you, move into your new role. Hopefully it'll be fun, exciting. It's not going to always be easy. And I'm sure you're going to learn tons from all kinds of individuals that think they know more than you or think they know more than something else. But that being said, you're such an enthusiastic and fun person to talk to, very knowledgeable, and I appreciate all that you do. So I don't know if you have any other things to say, but we'll probably go ahead and call it the end of the podcast. We just appreciate you being on today.
No, perfect. Thank you so much again for having me. And I can envision it now. We're going to, a year from now, have me come back and talk about lessons learned over the last year. So I think this may be
the podcast is still going.
Yeah, this may be a series. But no, thank you. I've really enjoyed it and appreciate anyone who needs to reach out, for anything this year while I'm in this role. Please do.
Sounds great. Well, guys, thanks for being on the podcast. Or listening to the podcast. Kendall's message is very positive. Looking forward to watching her and grow over this next year into her new position. If you've got any topics or other questions for us, I do have a little thing down here on the bottom I just ran that basically is got an email. It's pfpodcastmo@gmail.com. It's an email address that you can send topics if you're interested in maybe appearing, like what Kendall said. we got to tell everybody about the MPA conference. It's next week, and this episode hopefully will be airing next week, so it'll be right before the actual conference. So thank you for being on. We'll talk to you at the conference. Have a good day.